Hello and welcome to Mansion Interviews, a podcast which gives me an excuse to talk to interesting people, while at the same time improving your English. You can improve your listening with comprehension questions and find some help with difficult words from this interview at inglespodcast.com/BobY. B-O-B-Y. Here with me today is a published author, a teacher, a film enthusiast, the editor of online English language newspaper Valencia International, Bob Yareham. Welcome to Mansion Interviews.
Thank you very much, Craig. Great to be here.
Lovely to have you. Bob, let's start back in 1981 when you first came to Valencia, I believe. Could you tell the audience why you first came to Spain and what you were doing before you came?
Well, it was the typical situation of a teacher working in Italy who went to Yugoslavia to work for a summer, visited Oxford, met a girl who was my student, 22 years old, so it's legal. And, she was from Valencia. I followed her here and been here ever since.
So you came here for love?
I came here for love.
And how did you get involved in teaching? I mean, did you leave?
Well, I trained to be a teacher. I am a Bachelor of Education and I'm a teacher of English and History for secondary level. And so as soon as I finished my degree, I was working in English as a foreign language, first of all in Britain. Mm-hmm. Decided that I would prefer to live in exotic countries, teaching adults rather than teaching British children in a secondary school. Mm-hmm. I went to Italy, then to Yugoslavia, and then to Spain. Okay,
so I know that you're involved in a couple of very interesting projects at the moment, and we'll go into that a bit later. But are you still involved in teaching at the moment?
Yes, I'm a self-employed teacher. Most of my clients, I think is the correct word, are adults. Well, in fact, they're all adults at the moment. I teach a lot at the Polytechnic University of Valencia, teaching teachers. And I teach people like lawyers, business people, and anything but children, basically.
So yeah, same here. So you're teaching other teachers at the Polytechnic. Are you teaching them general English or teacher training?
Well, it depends on the level, but the basic idea is that they are people who could give their classes in English one day, so it's presentation skills and how to put together a discourse, basically.
Oh, that's interesting. Right, so what is ValenciaInternational.com? If you could talk about that for a bit, and also how could it be useful to Spanish-speaking learners of English who are listening to this?
Well, one of the reasons it could be useful is the fact that you can also listen to the articles. And so although they sound a bit robotic because it's some kind of app that makes it possible to listen, the articles are all about something to do with Valencia. They're all about Valencian people or people from other countries living in Valencia. And all of them are good news. We don't publish bad news because if you read a newspaper today, it's so depressing that you need to go and have a shower. And basically, Valencia International is a shower of good news. The idea came about actually when I was on the Camino de Santiago 2 years ago. And everywhere I stopped, people would ask me where I was from, where I lived, how come I spoke Spanish if I was a foreigner. And so when I told them I was from Valencia, they immediately started with comments like, oh, capital of corruption and this kind of thing. And it got me thinking, and when you walk the Camino de Santiago, you do a lot of thinking, that Valencia is not just corrupt politicians, that it's got lots and lots of good things. And so I decided to write about them, and the newspaper started then in the summer of 2013.
That's interesting. My view of news, and I don't read newspapers because they depress me, but doesn't bad news sell? I mean, wouldn't bad news in there be more popular? Why have you made that distinction?
Well, because as you say, newspapers are depressing. One of the things I do is to scan all the Valencia press every day, looking for good stories, looking for positive news, and it's very hard to find. And that's one of the reasons the newspaper exists, so that people can have a feel-good experience and read positive things and come away thinking, well, life is worth living. I'll put off the suicide for a few more days.
That's a lovely idea. It's a lovely idea. What's your Spanish newspaper of choice? Do you have
one? I always scan the newspapers on the internet, so I scan Levante and Las Provincias. It's always very interesting contrasting them because they publish the same stories but with a very different focus. I also look at online newspapers like Valencia Plaza, which is actually quite good for articles about up-and-coming new companies, startups, things like that. So mostly those three. Is
this a labour of love or is it a business? And how much time does it involve?
It involves a lot of time because it's only one of my projects. It is a labour of love because we lose money with it. It would be nice if some rich organisation came along and decided that it was a good idea and should be subsidised, but for the moment nobody has taken the initiative. The newspaper is very open to other people writing articles, and if anybody, whether they be a native speaker of English or any other nationality, wants to write an article for us, then we'll be very happy to publish it, as long as it is positive and has some kind of Valencia international connotation.
So it'd have to be relevant to the Valencia community in some way?
Yeah. Yes, it is. As you say, it's the Valencia community. It's not just about the city of Valencia, so it could be Alicante or Castellón too.
Okay, cool. So you accept guest posts of anybody that's interested in writing in, and there will be a link on the webpage at inglespodcast.com/BobY. So just go there and you'll find the link to everything we speak about during this interview. Bob, moving on to another project you're involved with, Silver Screen Spain, which is at silver-screen-spain.com. Again, that link will be in the show notes. Could you tell us what that is and how you became involved in that project?
Yes. Well, it started when I was a columnist for a Valencian newspaper called Costa Blanca News. And I was looking for subject material to write about, looking for Anglo-Spanish material. And I came across some of the films that had been made in English in Spain. I think the first one was Lawrence of Arabia. And I just got interested in the idea of all these films that were made in Spain and started writing articles about them. And then I realized that it would be much better to put them all on a website so that they could be a permanent reference. And to date, we have over 700 English language films made in Spain.
Over 700, that's incredible. Are you doing this by yourself?
Well, there is a webmaster, Juan Jose Cermeño, who's a software developer, and he does all the technical parts because I have trouble even working a mobile phone. And I do all the writing. And recently I've been collaborating with other people because the project has been helped by people all over Spain who've given information. And recently I've started doing presentations because I published a book which contains 101 locations in Spain, 101 films made in Spain and all the locations where they were made.
Sorry to stop you. So the book has come from the website?
Well, the texts are different, but basically, yes, it's a selection of the 101 most interesting films and in a book form, so you can actually hold it in your hand when you visit the places.
Sorry, what was the name of the book? That's 101...
101 locations, a set jetter's guide to Spain.
A set jetter's guide to Spain. That's a play on words, isn't it? Because a jet setter is a person who, like a famous film star or a rich person who flies to Paris to go shopping. So why did you change jet setter to set jetter?
Not guilty. The word existed before I found it. It was actually a term invented, probably by a journalist, I don't know, to describe cinema tourists, because obviously the other part of the play on word is that a set is the place where you actually make a film.
Of course, a film set, absolutely, right. And this book is available, I believe, on Amazon.es.
Yes, it's available all over the internet, and it's also available in the Polytechnic bookshop, and I think that's about the only place in Valencia.
Okay, excellent. And I will, of course, put a link to the book in the show notes at inglespodcast.com/Bob Y. Now, if you had to choose, Bob, one film made on location in Spain, which would be your favourite? Is there one that you go back to and rewatch?
Well, it's a question I'm often asked, and I usually give a different answer every time. One that I've been thinking of recently, and it's because it's surprising, is the Battle of Britain. The Battle of Britain, about 50% of it was filmed in Spain. And one of the reasons was that it was very hard to find aircraft from that epoch when they were making the film. But fortunately, the Spanish Air Force had material from that epoch. In fact, it was the most modern stuff they had.
Well, they use them for commercial flights.
Pretty much so. But it was about the only place where you could get Spitfires. And so rather than fly them all to England, which probably they would have lost half, they did a lot of the filming in Spain, in Sevilla, in Huelva, and especially in Guipúzcoa. In fact, there's a number of scenes from Hondarribia where you can see all these German officers staring with their binoculars across what's supposed to be the English Channel to these white cliffs, which are in fact in France, but look very much like the white cliffs of Dover.
Uh-huh.
And so probably as an oddity, that's one of my favourites.
Well, if you check it out, I'm assuming that it's on the website. I actually noticed that if you go to silver-screen.spain.com, you can look for films by the film index. So you'd search for the Battle of Britain using that. Or you can list by cities. So if you want to see what films were made in Madrid or Barcelona, you could also search by cities. Is that right?
Well, it's organised by provinces and also by decade and also alphabetically. But there is a section called Cinema Cities, which is an actual guide following a route around specific cities like Barcelona, Valencia, Madrid, Denia, and Toledo.
Sounds very interesting. So if you are interested in films, if films are your thing, go and have a look at this website, and I think you'll find it very, very interesting. Anything else before we move on?
Yes, as I said, I've been doing a number of presentations of the book, and on October the 17th, I will be in the Parador Nacional of Cardona in the province of Barcelona.
That's October the 17th, 2015.
Yeah.
So if you're listening after that,
it's too late.
It's too late.
But the interesting thing about this is I'll be presenting my book with two colleagues who will also be presenting their books. One of them, Jaume Palau, is an expert on James Bond films, and he will be talking about all the James Bond films made in Spain, and there are surprisingly quite a few of them. And Marga Araya, who has just published a book about all the visits of Laurence Olivier to Spain. And so the three of us will be there presenting these books. And I think it's quite an interesting concept.
The only James Bond film I can think of that was made in Spain is the one that was made in Cadiz.
Yes, Die Another Day, I think.
Die Another Day, yeah.
Well, there actually have been a lot more. I'm not very good on the names, but I think there's something about Tomorrow.
Tomorrow Never Dies.
Tomorrow Never Dies. There were short extracts from various other films made in Spain, like Never Say Never Again some of it was made in Almeria.
Okay.
And, of course, the most famous example of cinema tourism was the one which showed the Guggenheim Museum.
Yep.
Which really boosted visits to the museum, in fact.
Bob, you seem to be very productive.
I have 3 children.
Where does your motivation and enthusiasm come from, juggling all these projects and teaching and writing and being an author?
There's a very simple answer to that. It's fear of death and desire to be immortalized.
But everybody has that. What keeps you focused on these projects?
Well, probably my age, the fact that I'm 61, and the future is shorter than the past, and so I want to get stuff done before I say goodbye.
So do you find yourself becoming more productive the older you get?
Yes, the closer to death, the more productive.
Interesting. Thank you for being so honest. Can I put you in the Quickfire hot seat for 3 or 5 quick-fire questions?
Excellent.
Be as brief or as long as you would like.
Favorite color is green.
What's your favorite Spanish dish?
Very difficult. I think possibly my favorite Spanish dish is when I was in a bar once in Bilbao, I was looking at a menu and they had a translation in English of the menu. And one of the dishes was described as beautiful to the iron.
Beautiful to the iron, yes. I-R-O-N.
And so I ordered it.
What was it?
Bonito a la plancha.
Very good. Plancha, iron, I get it. Okay. I know you've got an interest in history. Where would you go in a time machine?
Where would I go in a time machine? Good God. Probably somewhere where there's no wars going on, but that would be very difficult. Would this be a time machine where I can be killed or one where I would be immune?
You'd be immune, so it would be the most interesting or intriguing period in history that you'd like to visit and see what's going on.
Then I would go to the trenches of the First World War, because about 5 years ago I visited the Ypres in Belgium and saw what's left of the trenches and visited the museums, and I read a lot about the period, and it's just extraordinary to think about how much human suffering has taken place and how many people, very brave people, who gave away their lives for some ridiculous notion. Well, today we think of it as ridiculous notion of empire and king and country. And it's a period that fascinates me, although I feel guilty about it.
Is there anything still left on your bucket list? Something that you haven't done that you'd like to do, or a place that you haven't seen that you'd like to visit? An experience that you'd like to have?
Well, I'd like to have a forehand massage. I once gave my wife one as a birthday present. Places to go.
A forehand. What is a forehand massage?
Well, it's two people massaging you at the same time.
Oh, okay, got it. Okay, a forehand massage. I was thinking forehead for some reason. A forehand massage.
Yeah, places to go. I don't really like traveling very far because I'm afraid of flying. And normally I travel around Spain as part of the projects. And places in Spain I haven't been to, Badajoz is one. I'd like to go to Badajoz because I read about the siege of Badajoz by the Duke of Wellington and about the atrocities committed by the British troops, and I'd like to go there and apologise.
Do you not fly at all? I mean, if you go back to England for any reason, do you drive?
Well, I don't go back to England because, like you, my mother lives in the Costa Blanca, and I have no desire to go back to England because you can see the cricket on television, and it's too expensive. And the last time I flew was when I went to Brussels, and I just had a lot to drink before I got on the plane. It's the only way you'll get me on a plane.
That's a good idea. I'll have to recommend that to a friend of mine who's also not keen on flying. What one thing, Bob, if you were to tell someone about yourself, would they find it difficult to believe? Surprise me.
Well, if you look at my weight, the fact that I walked the Camino de Santiago in 30 days 2 years ago, most people don't believe me when I tell them.
Did you do all of it? Because it starts in France, doesn't it? And goes right across, and you can do sections.
Well, it depends. I mean, if you walk the French route, most people start at Roncesvalles on the Spanish side. It's mostly foreigners who start on the French side, people who've come from Paris, Americans who've flown to Paris and then got a train to Saint-Jean. And I walked Roncesvalles to Santiago.
Is that an experience you'd recommend? Because I've often thought of doing it.
Absolutely, and do it by yourself. It's an experience. You discover yourself. Everybody tells you that the true Camino is the Camino inside, and it's absolutely true. That you discover yourself, you discover simplicity, you learn to live out of a bag, and you meet people from all over the world, which is the incredible thing.
So you went off and did it on your own? You didn't go with your wife?
No, my wife's a regular walker. She goes every year, but I just had a gap where I had the opportunity to go, and I just went in mid-June until mid-July.
Finally, Bob, if you could go back to your early 20s, what advice would you give a young Bob?
Never regret your mistakes. Don't look back.
Thank you very, very much for your time. And I'd like to remind everyone that Silver Screen Spain is at www.silver-screen-spain.com. And Bob's other website, Valencia International, is valencia-international.com. Both of those and the other links that we've spoken about in this interview can be found at inglespodcast.com/BobY.
And this weekend there will be an exclusive interview with Craig Wayland in Valencia International.
Thank you very much. I look forward to seeing it. Thank you for your time, Bob.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Bob, for spending time with us. And thank you for listening to this Mansion interview. If you would like to contact Bob, you can reach him through his websites. Valencia International is at valencia-international.com and Silver Screen Spain is at silver-screen-spain.com. And you can buy his book on amazon.es. All of these links are in the show notes at inglespodcast.com/BobY. And you can find more podcasts to improve your English at inglespodcast.com. And remember, you can also study English free at mansioningles.com.